All right, we're back today, and looks like our internet's way better. So we'll see how it goes. I'll do the chat in a little while. I want to jump into this. I don't know how long my internet's going to hold. It's already kind of closing in a little bit. I think I need to get a new computer, which I'll probably do that in the next month or so. But until then, we're going to go with what we have and hopefully be able to get back on streams once a week again till the end of the year. Then I'm going to switch things up some for 2026. All right. When am I able to help people? Now, this is a question that you will get into once you go through certain parts of your awakening and ascension. When am I able to help someone work through a program? When am I able to assist someone with seeing a timeline? When am I able to get involved with people and really assist someone in their ascension and awakening process? You know, when am I capable of doing that? When can I do it? Now, this is something that we all will get before we should. I'll caveat right off. If you got into it way before you should have, I did, got into helping people way before I should have. And I use the word help. I usually don't use that word, but I think maybe it's appropriate today. Because you're going to go through different parts of your journey. And in the beginning, we start going through getting really excited about our metaphysical kind of stuff. And I'm going to start with metaphysical. We get into crystals, you might get into tarot. You could get into mediumship. A lot of us kind of start with that spirituality route when we start going through our awakening process, and it opens up a lot of our powers in a sense. You know, all of a sudden we're able to see the future and see other people's futures and read energy fields and read someone else's field. And these are things that we do, and it's very natural to us. We're excited about it. You know, I remember I was very clairaudience, which meant I heard the field. Like I heard everything going on in it. You know, I'd hear, you know, I would just hear it like an audiobook. If I was, at that point, I was working on people and doing energy work on people back then. It occurred to me, and I remember I had one of my teachers of Reiki was trying to get me to do a certain breathing technique, and I was like, well, I can't do that, because if I do that, I can't concentrate on what I'm trying to listen to. And that was my strongest one at the point where I could hear, you know, and it's still one I go back to the most, because it was my first one. I guess it's like your firstborn child, right? You're going to go back to that one first because it's your first one. So when I get like in my head about something and I really want to kind of work through it, I'll go back to clairaudience. But the point is, we all develop these things along the way. You can all of a sudden, you can really look at a tarot spread and really understand what it's trying to say. And we start wanting, or you're dreaming and you're starting to see your dreams are coming true to an extent. Because we all do dream the future. Different dimensions, maybe multidimensionality. We're always dreaming things that are occurring simultaneously, but to us, we haven't hit the vibration, it has not happened here yet. So we're always going to be opening things up. And it's this phase where we're like, well, I really want to be able to, I'm going to say, make it a career, and that's how we're going to start this. So you want to make it a career, right? Because one, your old career has no meaning anymore because you're so excited about this. You're so excited about unlocking your potential and unlocking other people's potential, shifting people's fields, shifting people's energy, that you lose interest in being whatever you were, whether you were a doctor or a lawyer, you're doing, I don't know, 20-some years. And before that, I did environmental work back in the 90s. That's what I was doing. So you just don't have an interest in that stuff anymore. So you're like, okay, I want to really do this. So it's like, what can I do? And, charge money because I have to have a place to live and buy groceries and stuff. But you're trying to make it some kind of a career shift. And we all go through that. We're trying to career shift it. We're trying to move it along. All of a sudden, I want this to be something that I can do long term. So that's when we start having a couple of issues. Now, anyone who has achieved any higher consciousness, whether you've embodied it or not, if you've achieved it, and you're working in that energy, you can assist people. Okay, the problem we get into is we kind of overstep it a little bit because we're still working through our own human programming, even in these phases, right? So you can give someone a tarot spread, or you can do energy work on someone, or you can even put out videos, and talk about metaphysical, or talk about awakening, or talk about whatever you want to talk about. But there's still not a purity to it yet. Until you've gone through certain ascensions, certain stages of embodying in your higher self, there's still a karmic timeline involved in a sense. There's still a lack energy. We're still kind of doing it for attention in a way because we feel special doing it and we want other people to see that. Because in our human consciousness, we very rarely ever feel special. The human consciousness, the realities we create from that, were never set up for us to feel special. That's just not how they're set up. They're not meant to be that. They're just not built that way, and that's not how you're supposed to feel when you're in them. That's why you go towards something else. That's why we all leave it at some point. Because we want to go and do something different. We want to go and do something else. So as we start to move through our field and gain all of these power sets, we start to have people and you can either go out and look for people, but you'll find people just kind of start coming to you. And you start working with people. And it is a very important part of the journey to do this initial work with people. I know for a while, I had this job that I was just learning Reiki. This is back in, 2010, I guess. It's a long time ago. And I would do it for free on people, right? Because I still had my regular job at that point, so I could just do it for free. And it was a very proactive company, a very progressive maybe company, where they had all these, well, to me at the time it seemed very progressive. Maybe it would not be now, but they had all these nursing rooms where you could go and nurse your babies. I don't know if there's anyone that was even pregnant or there were that many pregnant mothers there, but for whatever reason, we had all these rooms for nursing babies in this place. And I would lay people down on the floor in these rooms and I would do Reiki on them. And I just started with one or two people, and then before I'd have all these people on my inbox saying, we want in on what you're doing in the nursing rooms. Like, what's going on in there? We want to do it too. And it became just this really fun thing. And I'd had a table at my house, and I had people from work come to my house, and we would do Reiki and just have a good time. And I'd read their fields. We'd go through past lives, because at the time I still saw it as that. And I bring that up because we see it differently as we go. Right now, I would not call it a past life. It's just something in their field that's not. It's an energetic signature in their field that's not resolved. It's a simultaneous life. It's a multidimensional existence they're doing, but I wouldn't call it the same thing now. I would look at it differently. The same thing when I was working through people with their dream work, because I did a lot of dream work stuff. You have a different spin on it, and because you haven't fully gotten to a place where ascension is in part, you've cleared all your programming. Fully ascended, I have no programming anymore, right? That's what that means. I can't say I'm there because I know I still have some programming, and you're always going to be working on something. So are you ever going to be fully ascended? I guess it depends on how you want to kind of break it down. Technically, maybe we never are. But you have enough of your programming where it doesn't take looking at and what you're saying. And you also start to understand that trying to make it a career is not really what you're here to do. And I'm going to put a pin in that, and I'm going to do some caveats to that. It does not mean that you consistently have to work for free. In the beginning, a lot of us work for free. A lot of us work for free because we have other jobs. We're trying to learn our craft. That's why I used to do it. It was so fun, at the time. And there was a class I went to years ago. It was a seminar. It was a retreat. I don't remember now. This is a long time ago. And the guy teaching said, don't ever make your passion your career, because you'll lose your passion for whatever it is. Because now you put pressure on it. And now you put all these constrictions on it. And to a way, that is true. And to a point, I understand what he's trying to say. When you try to take the embodiment process, the awakening process, and make that a career. It doesn't go together in the sense you would think it goes together, because there is a taint to that in a sense, because you're trying to think of the word I want to use. It's not even monopolize, but you're trying to, at that point, still trying to build a human life from an ascended consciousness, and it don't really know what to put the money in. That's why for so long we will work for free or work for very little, because we would invest the money we get back into a human life to build that back up. Now, so what starts to happen is you start to get a lot of clients that they want to live a human life, but they want to expand their consciousness to then be able to improve their human life. Now, for a while that can work for some people, and for a while it works for us, but what you find is a lot of your clients are going to eventually start to go away, not because what starts to happen is their human life starts to dissolve. The more you delve into higher consciousness, the more your human life goes away. So the whole purpose of why you were doing it is now dissolving away. So now that's gone away. So you're kind of just sitting here and you're like, okay, now what do I do? Now why am I doing it? And then you just continue to do it because there's no way back. This is already dissolved away. There's nothing left. And when people if they were your clients, people you worked with for a while, you were trying to get them to that point because they're really shifted, and that world, that human existence is in a different frequency. It can't hang with them in their new frequency. It can't exist there. It can't stay there. It has to go away. It has to. But they don't like that. We didn't like that. You start to question what you're doing. They start to question what they're doing. And they have to go normally for a while on another journey. And that can be confusing to us because we don't understand why that's happening either sometimes, depending on how early you start to really reach out and people start coming to you, and the advice you're giving. And I'm going to say advice you're giving because you really, at the time, you can't see the whole thing. You can only see parts of it, and they only want to hear parts of it. Because normally if they're coming to you, you're more enlightened in this sense than they are, because you're trying to activate them like someone activated you. And they are coming to you for a reason. It doesn't mean you don't have something to offer. You will have something to offer. There's going to be someone that's going to be looking for what you have to offer, no matter what stage you're in. And I don't want this to come off as until you get to this most enlightening stage, you can't do anything, because that's bullshit too. That's our human ego saying we have to be perfect. And I did a video on that last week. That's not true either. Just you start to see the pitfalls in it. And you start to see why I was trying to do it before. There was that karmic timeline, there was a lack involved. Like I'm trying to do it as a career. And it's not really going to work like that. One, you switch what you're doing all the time. Like I used to do Reiki, I used to do, I do tarot, but I do energy readings. I mean, all that kind of stuff. Mediumship, and I was very strong with all that stuff years and years ago, and have a regular job. What I would call a more mainstream linear job, I did both. But eventually you move past all that stuff, because that stuff is all kind of buried in spirituality. And you kind of move past all that because you start to embody and become spirit and form, and you want to go do something else. So you kind of can get into this trap where, okay, everything I had done to build this, now I'm not interested in that anymore, and now I see it differently. I don't see, medium, being a medium the same way as I used to. You're basically just reading the field and whatever's in their field. Are there going to be people who they would view as someone else, like a dead mother, a dead father in their field? Yeah, because it's an aspect of them they haven't resolved. That's why they're still there, I mean, technically, until they embody that aspect, they're going to continue to be there. So you start to look at it differently. The rules start to change. Like it used to be the rule with Reiki that you had to do one thing with the left hand, one thing with the right hand. I don't remember. The right side was the left side the feminine side, and the right, I don't remember now. I think the left side was the feminine side, and the right side was the masculine side. And the rules is constriction to it. And I did a lot of different types of Reiki. I just didn't do one type. I did 4 or 5 different types, Same thing with dream work. I didn't just read one dream book. I mean, I did a year's study on dreaming. So, and even that stuff now seems limited to me, because I've expanded past it. And so you start to expand past all this stuff. And then you start to figure out, okay, well, now what am I going to do? Because you still have that support issue. I'm going to call it the support issue because it's kind of the elephant in the room no one really likes to talk about that much, because humans don't view soul work, right? They just don't view it. And they're not going to, okay? Only souls are going to understand the importance of activating the soul, okay? So until someone who is in that part of their process where they want to activate their soul, they see a value in that, and a value in ascension, and a value in embodying and going through their awakening, and their human life starts to cave in. That's usually what your awakening is. Your human life collapses. Everything collapses, you know. It's not going to be valued, right? So and they'll only value it to a point where they can hold on to their human life. So the amount of people you're talking to gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller in what you want to be talking to, you know, because there's a lot of different, and I've done tons of videos on why can't we all just do it at the same time? Well, you have to be able to have something running in the old to support people coming through at different stages, right? Like I had a years because it was supporting me to be able to do all these other stuff. If everyone's world collapsed at the same time and the whole planet collapsed at the same time, it would just be complete chaos and mayhem. When everyone just leaves their human life, and there's, you know, it has to be in stages, because you have to have that, you pull me up, I'll push, you know, you push me up, I'll pull you up later kind of thing. You're going to bring a group through. Everyone who's doing awakening and ascension is supposed to bring a group through. You know, you might not bring 100 million through like some of the earlier people did. Maybe you're supposed to bring 500 through. Maybe you're supposed to bring 10,000 through. But you're supposed to bring people through. And you have to get to a point where you can do that. And there is a time where you can start the program breaking down. We will always get into that earlier than we should, because we're still running on programming ourselves. You know, because I would notice that the program I was working on with someone was still in me. That's why they were coming to me, right? Because the programming is what will attract you to people, right? A similar program. So in the beginning, when I started doing sessions to that extent, which was still years later, but it was still a big, you know, it's a responsibility. You want to be able to bring people through. And a lot of people drop off when their lives start to collapse because they want, once again, trying to enhance your human life with this stuff. And that's not what higher consciousness is. It's not going to enhance your human life. It's going to end your human life. Your human existence will be done and you'll rebuild a new one. And anyone who's telling you differently is not at that part yet. That's all. I'm not saying they're misleading you. They're just not at that part yet. You know, they're not at that part yet. And when they're at that part, they'll understand that. But they're not there yet. You know, when they get there, they'll see. They're not there yet. They're still, or they're waiting they're staying at a part for a long period of time because they are able to pay everything or very successful in whatever they do in that medium and in that space they're in. And that all that's really fourth dimensional consciousness. Spirit guides, demons, ghosts. I'm trying to think of something else. Anything that's kind of third religion in a sense. So it's all fourth dimensional stuff. Because nothing, it's all something separate from you. You know, you haven't embodied anything. You haven't become anything. You're still looking at it as something different from you. Something else. And even a past life, it's still a separate thing. You know, it's not me now in a different dimension. It is that simultaneously playing out here also energetically. It's me back in Egyptian times. You know, we put a, what's the word? We put a box on it, or we put a distance to it. You know, because anything you put a distance to, it's not really you. It's something else. Because you've got arm's length. That's what I'm trying to say. You have arm's lengths with it. You know, you're not. It's not really you. It's something far, far away in a galaxy far, far away from me. It's not me at all. But it is you, and it is stuff that we are constantly trying to work through and constantly trying to work on. So when you're in these phases, you'll find yourself. If you haven't already, you know, you have people coming to you. And sometimes it's also that power dynamic where someone thinks you're more powerful than they are, or that you can see more than they can. And you start to fall into that for a while because you can, but you can't see the whole thing yet. And no one really knows anybody better than they know themselves to an extent. Now, what happens is it starts to kind of flip. Like even when we went to people, because they knew more than we did. And they were, at some point, you went to someone because they were more enlightened than you were. And you followed that and followed that and followed that. And your universe will let you do that because it's activating you, activating the consciousness, activating you. But then you get to a point where all of a sudden, power to them. Or it's worked the separate way, or someone surrendered all their power to you. And that's what cuts it off. You know, it'll either really, I remember I did one thing where I was listening to this person tell me all this stuff, and I kind of followed it and followed it and followed it, and then I went back and said, well, none of this stuff worked out, and the person was like, oh, well, it's totally not relevant anymore, it's totally changed, everything's different. I'm like, what the fuck? What am I doing here? What are you talking about? It's my universe's way of saying, okay, stop doing that now. You know, stop listening to someone and everything they say, and following through with that, even when you knew it feels like it's not right anymore. You know, it feels like this is not, I don't want to use the word your truth because that's so overplayed, but it doesn't feel right, you know, and all of a sudden it's like, I listened to this for a year and it was bullshit. What am I doing? But we've all gone through that, you know, and that's why you want to be really careful. Like I don't say, oh, take what you get and leave the rest behind. I never like that because it's like, look, everything I'm saying, it has a purpose to be saying. You might not get it now. You might not get it for 5 years from now. You might have already gotten through the point where it would really resonate with you. Doesn't mean it's not valuable for somebody to hear. So you don't want to say that and then dismiss everything you just said to somebody. Because the minute you say that, everyone's going to take everything you just said, especially anyone with any bit of human consciousness left. It's going to take what you just said and be like, okay, well, I guess that was bullshit. Never mind then. It's important. It might not be where they are right now. It might not be for a decade. It is activating something. We just have to make sure we don't overstep. And overstep to the part where we're using them to fulfill a program we have. And they're using us to fulfill a program they have. And then we're just playing off the program. And we're not really helping anybody. You know, so until you can assist someone by looking at a program, but you're not taking on the program because you've cleared the program. You see it's a program, and you're not taking on somebody else's stuff. Because when you start taking on somebody else's stuff, then you're not through it yet. You see that with a lot of people who say they're empaths. Oh, I'm empathic, I feel your stuff. You're feeling your own stuff. You can't feel anybody else's stuff. If you're still feeling someone else's stuff, you still hold the program. That's why you're feeling it. Okay? The minute you stop feeling it, you've cleared it. And then you don't feel it anymore. It doesn't mean you still cannot assist the person. And we also want to make sure we're assisting people who want to be assisted. You know, a lot of times we start, especially in the beginning, and through a lot of it, we want to share. We're excited. You know, we want to get out there. We want to talk about it. We want to share. But we're kind of can be sharing with people who don't really want to hear it. You know, it's kind of like giving your opinion to someone who doesn't want it. You know, I can say the most profound shit. If someone doesn't have a mind to hear it and they didn't ask for it, they don't care. It doesn't matter. It goes on deaf ears. It pays no attention. They don't care what it is. They don't care what it says. It doesn't matter to them. And that's reality. That is the reality of the whole thing. So we have to, and there will be times when you know when you're clearing something. Now this is going to go two different ways. Sometimes when I'm clearing something, I know I can't really assist people. Sometimes I've gotten to a place where I know I'm clearing something, but I can kind of put a pocket on that and assist somebody else. Because you get to a certain space where you can do that. But I have a session today with this person, and we're going to go over what's and I'm going to put this over here. But until you can put this over here, until you can know you're not playing it out, and you're not telling people what to do in a sense, you know, exposing a program or showing someone a program, it's their responsibility to work through it. You know, you can show it to someone, and if they asked you to show it to them, and you might see it and they never asked you anything about it, you just see it playing out constantly, and you're like, oh, that plays out for them all the time. I've watched people go through loops 100 times. But if no one ever asks my opinion, it doesn't matter, you know, so they just kind of go through it until they get beaten up by it enough, or eventually they'll clear it. I mean, technically, they're clearing it when they're doing that. They're just clearing it like one of those old mountain climbers with the pickaxe. They just pick, a little bit at a time, a little bit. That's basically what they're doing. Where Ascension, we just kind of take a grenade and blow it up. We blow up the whole program. But you still need to be able to pick up the pieces and clear them. And a lot of people will see it. You see a lot of people say that, I see it, I know I do this, but we don't really do anything about it, and for a while we all sat in that camp, because doing something about it means making a big shift, making a big change, and that's always a stickler for people. That's always going to be the stickler point. When I'm at a place where something has to shift, and that means something's got to change. And our ego doesn't like that. It doesn't like the change. So in the beginning, when we start working with people, we still have our ego a lot involved in it, because it's a feeling of validation. It's a feeling of success. It's a feeling of, look what I can do. And there is a part of that where we want to assist people. But normally our ego is a little bit first in that. And if we're really honest when we're looking at it, that's why we're doing it. That's why you have so many different things you do over time, and why you always kind of, I do want to get back to the money thing too before I end today, but that's why you get into so many different iterations of what you do, because as your frequency changes, you look at something differently. You can't do that anymore. I couldn't do a medium reading anymore because I don't see it that way. When it comes to me for something like that, they're going to get a totally different answer than they're probably wanting to hear. And they want to hear a more of a textbook explanation of that. And that's not what I'm going to give them, right? So it's not really a space I can be in anymore. Telling someone's future. Can I see 100 futures? Maybe. Can I see maybe their top 5 right now? Probably. But it depends on the frequency. It depends on which one they follow. And the minute someone tells you what's going to happen, you can get kind of fixated on that. And you're kind of almost waiting for something to happen and not proactively living your existence in a sense, and you shift your frequency, you change all that. And a lot of that stuff is very pliable. And that's why, anytime I would do any type of reading back then, the present was easy to nail. Easy. When you started getting in a different dimensional timeline, that was harder because there's so many different iterations of it. Even when you look at tarot cards, they're going to pull out the strongest frequency right at that moment, but they don't have, 18 years to look at every possible iteration of every frequency you're going to experience to see what's going to come next, But I do want to touch on money again, and I've been on for almost half an hour. And if the audio once again is shit on this one, I don't want to spend a lot of time doing that. I'm going to have to try to clean up later. So it won't be. It seemed a little bit better, at least my internet connection did, and it looked okay on the phone too, so we'll see. Now, I mentioned earlier that we start trying to make a career out of it, but we're still trying to live our human life with the money we make from this stuff, right? Or our ascension journey, our awakening journey. What'll start to happen is you understand that the money you're making is for certain things. It doesn't mean you will not be able to support yourself, because at some point you have to be able to do that. And if someone is not supporting you, what you start to do is you start to cut off support for people who are not supporting you. A lot of us are going through that now, where we're starting to shift to people who are supporting us, and we're not wasting time on collectives that aren't supporting anymore. You will have what you require. It might not be what your human requires, but you will have what you require to be fine. I promise you that. For what I've been through, I can make a promise on that. You'll have what you require to get through what you need to get through, to eat, to have a place to live. You'll have what you require while you're doing what you're shown to do. Like, I'm shown to share this, I'm shown to share this. But there will be a time where you will have to switch your support to people who are supporting you. And you will have to really look at, okay, what do I have? How many different things can I put out? What do I put a money value on? And how much is that money value? But until we stop looking at the money as for me to make my human life back, you're not going to have a lot of money. The money is for certain things. You might have to get a very expensive house and live there because that's the frequency you need. You'll have the money to do that. But if you don't require that at that time, you won't have the money to do that. Money works differently when you get into the ascended realms. It doesn't work how it worked in the human realms, okay? So you'll have what you require. Your human might want to have 3 cars because that's what you had when you were human, and you might just have 1 car. You might be sharing a car with somebody else. You don't care about that stuff anymore. Those are all things that you cease to care about. So once you cease to care about all that stuff, and you can look at the money that comes in, or how can this money assist the whole? It's not my money anymore. It's how does it assist the whole? It might assist the whole in raising your vibration and doing something to raise your vibration. I want to make sure that's clear. It doesn't mean that, oh, I'll just give all my money to someone else and I won't be able to live or anything. That's not what I'm saying. And your universe won't allow that anyway. You will know. You'll say, gee, I really need to find a place, or okay, all of a sudden a place will come. And the money to support you in that place will come. It might not come the way you want it to. It might not come the way you saw it was going to come. It might not be the way you thought it was going to come. You might have seen it coming from a certain direction, but not the one you thought it would come from. But it'll be there. So you have to kind of stop trying to put everything in a box and figuring out how it's going to work. But when you start to look at the money as, okay, what can I do with this? Like, do I do a bigger project with this? And do I launch a bigger initiative with this? Do I do a class with this money? I'll start a retreat center with this money. It doesn't matter what it is, but you will know what you're supposed to do, because money is tied to stuff here. And maybe that money is tied to a creative process here. I'm going to say it like that. If you know what you're trying to do and it's aligned, you'll have the money to do it. And you'll know when something's not aligned because you don't have the money to do it. Or it's not aligned right now, or more pieces have to fall in place. It's not the time yet, right? The collectives aren't ready for that yet. And when the collectives are ready, you'll have the money, you'll have the vision, you know what you're supposed to do. So let me check my questions really fast. Okay. All right. I think we're going to end that today. And I hope that is assisting everyone, and I'll see everyone next time. Bye.